Quick question. What happens when a bunch of engineers hijack their own company's rulebook, wedge a 389 cubic inch V8 into a mild-mannered mid-size coupe, and kind of forget to tell their bosses until it's too late? You get a Pontiac Tempest Le Mans GTO. Yeah, it started as just an option package, a loophole, a technicality. And yes, Pontiac borrowed that GTO name straight from Ferrari, no questions asked. By 1966, it was so legendary they had no choice but to give it its own nameplate. This wasn't some polished corporate rollout, this was an underground experiment with chrome bumpers and redline tires. It was fast, it was loud, it bent the rules at every turn, and it completely rewired what people thought a car could be. You've heard the stories. The first muscle car, the one that started it all. But here's the thing, how did it actually drive? What did it cost? And how did something General Motors didn't even want end up setting off the muscle car revolution? Let's crack open the GTO story. It's not clean, it's not corporate approved, and that's exactly what makes it great. This video is inspired by 3 articles about the Pontiac GTO, one from Haggerty, another from How Stuff Works, and a third from a 1964 car and driver review. You can find links to these articles in the Google Doc, linked in the description. I highly recommend checking them out for more in-depth information. The idea was pretty simple. Take the mid-size Pontiac Tempest Le Mans, which was already a nice little car, and turn it into something much more aggressive. That meant dropping in a 389 cubic inch V8, giving it a floor shift, stiffer suspension, louder exhaust, and putting the whole thing into a single package you could check off on the order sheet. The result? You just turned a $2,480 Tempest into a street machine that could outrun most full-size V8s. That $296 GTO option package didn't just give you performance, it gave you bragging rights. It was subtle, fast, and for the time, shockingly affordable. Now, General Motors had a rule back then. No engines over 330 cubic inches in intermediate cars. So how did the GTO get a 389? Pontiac's engineering team got creative. Technically, it wasn't a separate model, it was an option package. That little workaround let them slip it past the brass upstairs, and it worked. Pontiac figured maybe they'd sell 5,000 of these things. Instead, they sold over 32,000 in the first year alone. At the heart of every 1964 GTO was that 389 cubic inch V8. If you stuck with the standard setup, you got a Carter AFB 4-barrel carburetor and 325 horsepower. If you paid $115 extra, you got the real beast, the tri-power version. 3 2-barrel Rochester carburetors and a total of 348 horsepower, along with a solid 428 pound-feet of torque. And that wasn't just marketing. This car could move. The 4-barrel version ran the quarter mile in 15.7 seconds at 92 miles per hour. The tri-power? Even faster depending on the axle ratio you picked. Speaking of which, those shorter rear ends weren't just sitting on the shelf. You had to get them with the metallic brake package, the heavy-duty radiator, and the limited slip differential. That whole combo cost $75, and it was worth every penny if you wanted this car to hit hard off the line. The standard transmission was a 3-speed manual, but most buyers upgraded to the 4-speed, and that 4-speed was paired with a Hirsch shifter. Short throws, dead-on accuracy, and just about perfect for banging gears. There was also an automatic available, but if you were serious, you wanted the stick. So what was it like to actually drive this thing? Start with the shifter. It had that classic Hurst linkage with a big, heavy tree trunk of a lever planted right next to your thigh. At first, it might feel like the throws are too short. If you were coming from a sports car, you might overthink it. Try to widen the gate or make the pattern more complicated than it is. But after a few pulls, it all starts to click. You stop babying it. You slam through the gears the way this car was meant to be driven. Straightforward, mechanical, brutal. The GTO offered more than just straight line speed. Pontiac actually upgraded the handling. Stiffer springs, heavy-duty shocks, and a beefier front anti-roll bar kept it in check. There was also an optional roadability group that gave you sintered metallic brake linings and other performance upgrades. That option made a real difference. And if you wanted better steering, Pontiac offered a quicker 20-to-1 ratio. The handling wasn't sports car sharp, but it was confident. For a mid-size car with a big V8, it felt planted. Slide inside, and it's all laid out pretty well. The steering wheel, it looked like wood, felt like wood, but it was plastic. A very convincing fake. In fact, it fooled a few people. One reviewer admitted they were completely conned until someone pointed out the truth from the catalog and made them feel like General Motors had just pulled a fast one. Fake or not, it looked great. The gauges were mostly legible. The speedometer sat slightly left of center and had that classic 270-degree sweep. The bucket seats weren't really buckets. These were shared with other General Motors compacts like the Corvair Monza. You got a little lateral support, but not much, and if you were a bigger driver, you'd squash that soft seat cushion flat anyway, which, weirdly enough, made it more comfortable. Manual adjustment gave you a good range of motion, but if you sprung for the power setup, it actually limited how far back you could go. Not ideal if you liked a stretched out arm-straight driving position. And the back seat? Cramped. It was technically a 5-seater, but in reality, it was a 4-passenger setup. 3 adults in the back was a tight squeeze. If you're enjoying the video, feel free to subscribe. It takes just a second and helps the channel out, plus you won't miss any future videos. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of April, so thanks for the support. From the outside, the GTO didn't scream performance. That was part of the appeal. Nothing flashy, no big scoops, no bright stripes, just clean lines and a deep growl coming from the 4 tailpipe extensions. And yet everywhere it went, it turned heads. Was it the understated styling? The low, rumbling exhaust, the name alone, maybe all of it. It had presence without being loud. If there was one styling misstep, it was the fake vents on the hood. General Motors design boss Bill Mitchell insisted on sticking those on just about everything. Fortunately, the GTO only had the hood vents, not a dozen others slapped around the car, so it could have been worse. From the very beginning, Pontiac knew it couldn't sell performance on horsepower alone. It needed style, options, and a little attitude. So the GTO was offered in 3 body styles between 1964 and 1967. A 2-door sedan, what people usually call a post car, a pillarless hardtop, and a convertible. There were also a few changes in the exterior design over those years, including updates to the grille, headlights, and hood details, though the overall shape stayed familiar. This wasn't a case of right place, right time. The 1964 GTO created its own place and made its own time. It took what was possible in an American car and moved the goalposts. Big power, simple, usable performance, a clean design, and a price that put it within reach of young buyers who wanted more than what a full-size family car could offer. And the fact that it came from a parts bin special, a corporate workaround, and a little rule bending, that's just the icing on the cake. The 1964 GTO didn't follow a trend, it started one. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe and click on the recommended video that appears on the screen. It's all about the 1957 Corvette Super Sport. If you haven't heard of it, well, let me tell you, it's the most expensive Corvette ever sold at auction. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.